Hello, lovely people of the world. Welcome to yet another episode of Femversations by Young Women's Leadership Institute. I'm your host, Zawedin Zisa, and today I'm joined by amazing young feminists from Kenya. On my right and on my left, they will introduce themselves. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking on the reflections on the sogiasis in Kenya and religious extremisms and its effects on our societies today. So I'll let my guests introduce themselves. Welcome.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Maureen Mo Kasuku, pronouns she, her. I am a member of Feminist Conversations Kenya, FCK. FCK is a consortium of grassroots feminists based mostly in Nairobi, and we work on the intersections of social, economic, and reproductive justice.
Nice, amazing work.
Hello everyone, my name is Mary-Liz Biubwa. I am a human rights activist and defender, but also I'm a Black, queer, radical, angry, intersectional feminist from Nairobi, Kenya. I am the founder of the Queer Republic, and basically what my work focuses on is hugely on women's and children's rights, but particularly for the last 6 to 7 years on LGBTQ rights in Kenya and what it looks like when we ask for freedom for LGBTQ persons across the country. Glad to be here.
Welcome, guys. Really amazing work you do. And by the way, Marie-Liz is very vocal online. Probably you've seen her somewhere. So today, she took us through a session on sogiasis, and it was really an amazing, informative session. And what I got to get from the session is that, one thing, language is very important, right? Yes, language is really very important because the language you use, it can really break someone or it can really make someone. Yeah, so it's really important, especially when you're dealing with people who identify differently. It's really important to ask people the pronouns because you can be calling people pronouns that are not comfortable with them, and it's really, really important. So please, intersectionality is important in understanding people and how it's very different on how people face things. Oh my God.
People face discrimination and things like that. I think I'm glad we've started from a point of the session that we've had about language, but essentially how language informs our intersectionalities as people. We are human beings. We come from different parts of the world. We speak different languages. Sometimes we speak languages that are understood by many people. For example, right now we are all speaking English, but it would be wrong to assume all the 7 billion, almost 8 billion people across the world understand English, right? Yeah. And it's very easy for us to have conversations today here and limit the experiences of different people who don't speak English, who don't understand English, and who can't hear English unless it's interpreted. And so language centers a lot of things, and that's why when we are talking about intersectionality and we are talking about addressing different issues that different people from different communities face, it's important that we use a bottom-up structure where we start right from the very bottom. We go to the grassroots areas. We go to different parts of, for example, in Kenya we have 47 counties. You go to different counties in the country. You go and listen to different issues faced by different people. For example, you could be talking about young mothers. You can't assume a young mother in Turkana faces the same problems that a young mother in Mombasa faces. Both of them face problems that are faced by young mothers, but their problems are not similar. It's your duty to be able to go to Turkana, listen to this person, and most of the time people use language barrier as a reason to do mediocre work. But what I normally urge people is, even before you send someone to Turkana, have you found a feminist who comes from Turkana who can go to Turkana and fetch those stories for you? Because only then will you ensure that whatever this young mother from Turkana says about the issues she faces can you make sure that the person who interprets that will ensure all the problems that this person faces are brought to the world, and we find solutions that work for them. And that zeroes down to when we're having conversation about sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, but also sexual characteristics. And the reason that is very important is because you have to understand that we all, again, grow up in different environments. We experience our sexuality and our identities differently. If you grew up in a home full of people who are accepting, full of people who are understanding, but also people who are open-minded, it would mean your experience will be very open, vast, but also it will be with lesser and lesser forms of discrimination and oppression, compared to a person who grows in a community like Kenya or East Africa or Africa in general, where a lot of violence against sexual and gender minority and especially LGBTIQ plus persons is meted on these people because they're seen to be uncultural, they're seen to be, the whole concept of it is seen to be a Western culture. And because of that, these people face a lot of discrimination, right from their families and the homes they grow up in to the state violence and systemic violence that is meted on them by the countries that they live in. And so it's very, very fundamental to look at that and define what intersectionality then would look like, because a solution that would work in America today for LGBTQ people could be a solution, but is not good enough for what would work in Kenya. True. So being able to understand that and then merging intersectionality. Like I said, one of the things that brings us together is the fact that we are all human beings. And by virtue of being human, we experience things, we go through things. But the best solutions can only be found if we ensure everyone who has an issue that needs to be addressed is on the table to tell us what addressing the issue looks like before we can be able to find a solution.
Yeah, so true. And I like what you said about you cannot get someone who has not experienced something to basically be the one to speak about problems. Maybe you're not identifying as an LGBTQ persons, and then you're brought in a room where you're representing these people. You'll not know the direct problems or the direct experiences that these people really get to go through. So it's really, really important when you are inviting people to spaces, just look at who you are inviting to a space, and if this person will really bring direct impact. It's not, always it's about how will this help me, how will this benefit me, but it should be legit in a way that it's benefiting me, but it's also benefiting something that I really fight for, something that I really believe to bring about social change, right? Yeah. So on the religious extremism that is really happening now in Kenya, we see that we have this men of God, religious people, right? But they're really doing things that are not right. The things that they're doing, they're not right. They're harming people. They're harming the people who find hope in them. And I don't know, maybe they have a motive behind whatever they're doing. They're evil. I just can't say that they're evil.
Outrightly, just evil people.
Because how can you make people, this man of God, making people fast, and then these people are dying. And then, that's a big thing happening now. But then people will choose to focus on things kill the LGBTIQ people in Kenya because it's wrong culturally, it's wrong for our religion. The religious people are the ones who are saying it's wrong for the religion, but the things that they're doing, so evil.
Right. Right. So Zawadi, it's very important that you brought up a very recent, actually ongoing crisis, religious ongoing crisis right now here in Kenya. There's a cult that is being run by a supposedly man of God, and has claimed over 70 victims as of this date, it has claimed over 70 victims. And this is a very serious issue. Religious fundamentalism, religious extremism has taken root in Kenya now that we have a bunch of Christo-fascists in power. I'm not going to name any names, but the current situation has allowed a lot of hate to breed, and historically religious fundamentalism has been used to discipline women, to discipline queer people, and to put them in their place, so to say. And there's been a recent wave of violence against women and queer minorities in the country. And religious extremism is the base of the superstructure of capitalism. Religious extremism supports the superstructure of capitalism in that a certain group of people have to be kept in their place, have to be disciplined for the superstructure of capitalism to work, so that you can blame the material conditions of the country on a specific group of people. Hawa wanawake wanavaa vibaya, hawa watu ni mashoga, ndo maana tuna experience hizi shida zote kwa hii country. So when you participate in religious extremism, you are uplifting the superstructure of capitalism. And the recent wave of violence that we've been witnessing against women, against queer minorities, only serves to prop up and uplift the ruling class. And I'm not really about, I know a lot of people talk about, oh, these are distractions, but these are not distractions. Like, if someone decides to do ethnic cleansing on a certain community in Kenya, XYZ, we'd never call that distractions, right? That is genocide. So we should never use the language of, oh, this is distraction, the anti-abortion movement is a distraction. I know people try to mean well when they say that, but it is not a distraction. This is a call for genocide. And I think as feminists, it's important for us to talk about religious fundamentalism and not just, can never be me. I can never join a cult. And why are people religious? People look for hope in religion, especially in times like this, when the whole world is going to shit. Like the economic crisis gives way for people to look for hope and fulfillment. And some of them might end up in cults, but I think as feminists we have to come from a place of understanding. We have to come from a place of grace and understand that it is a human thing to want to seek answers. It's a human thing to want to seek validation from a higher power. So how us feminists can navigate the religious extremism is that always try and meet people in a place where they understand. Meet them with grace. Understand that it's their material conditions that is pushing them to where they are, right? And also, I'd like to suggest that all feminists, if you are interested in religion and how to navigate religion, I suggest a great place to start is through liberation theology. You might not agree with everything that the church or the mosque or other religious institutions are, but you are part of this community. You are not living in some utopia. You might not like religion, but religion is what, we live in a religious society. So as a feminist, for us to navigate this space is for us to understand concepts like liberation theology. Liberation theology tries to use religion as a tool of liberation and not a tool to subjugate people. I grew up as a Christian. I'm no longer a Christian, but when I grew up as a Christian, the message was always to love your neighbor as yourself. And how do we do that? We explore many ways of, loving our neighbors. Does Christ call for the killing of your neighbor? No. Does Allah call for the, killing of women? No. So we have to find ways to navigate these spaces, use religion as a tool of liberation, and understand that we are part of this society. It might not be ideal, it might be a little bit too religious for the rest of us, but this is where we live. So, and these are our people, these are our communities. We cannot sit up in a soapbox, nyinyi na hizo dini zenyu. No, we cannot do that. We have to find a way to work with our communities. And one way of working with our communities, again, as I said, liberation theology. And a way to use liberation theology is to spread the message of love and understanding and meet people where they are.
Yeah, so true. And religion, it's always the women and the children who fall victim of the oppression in churches, in mosques, in the religious, umbrella. And, it's so sad because women and girls, children generally, and people just go through a lot of things and they just look for something that will just, give them hope, And we find priests, pastors, they're the people who are really doing most harm to the people in the community. And we are making the priests, pastors, the religious leaders rich, and you're suffering. Because I don't understand how I don't have bread in my house, but I'll just say the last 50 shillings I had, I'm going to give out.
Have bread.
If you really want to if you really want to, I feel like if you really want to do acts of service, if you really want to help someone, do it yourself in a way that, I have this money, I know this children's home, I'll go and, give this amount or something like that. But just making the people who are the oppressors rich, you're just giving them power, and they just target women, children, because they can easily believe them. Yeah. It's so wrong.
I think for me, I would pick from a lot of things that Maureen has shared. And yes, I'm among the people who, when you interact with me on social media, I will say fuck God a lot of times. Because my struggle with religion, just as Maureen has highlighted, growing up in a Christian home, growing up in a very Catholic home, and by Catholic I mean really Catholic, that somehow my mom and my dad, who grew up Catholic, met and married each other. So you can imagine the levels of Catholicism we practiced in that home. But just growing up, and I like saying this statement, our religion has become the moral yardstick for violence, abuse, and murder. And people, when you say that, people always say, what religion are you talking about? Which God are you talking about? But you see, that's the thing. Beginning of last year when we were getting into election, I went online, and if you follow me again online, you would have seen, because I went on and on and on about how I don't know who should be the president of this country, but I know Ruto can't be the president of this country because that's a Christian fundamentalist. And the danger of having someone who is a Christian fundamentalist at the helm of power is that they will limit and reduce every crisis that we find ourselves in as a country to, let's say, a prayer and we'll be fine. The problem with religion is that I don't exercise religion that is organized, because the problem with organized religion is people are meant to believe some bullshit over there, and somehow you're supposed to subscribe to it, answer to it, give to it, and all your being as a human being is supposed to be about it, even when, if you ask me, religion is not about that. And so looking at it, and then today while we were having our session, I was going through Twitter and I saw a tweet by Timothy Njoya, and Timothy Njoya started to try and limit the experiences of Kenyans, where he said, before you talk about Mackenzie and the people he's killing, which by the way is shocking, because I just talked to someone who is currently in Kilifi from Mombasa, and one of the ladies who offers her services had to go back to Kilifi because her whole family was wiped out by that church. Now they're finding ways to claim bodies so that they can go and bury. Literally, that's all that they can do. But we hear the story breaking out, and then Timothy Njoya comes on Twitter, and all he says is, before you call what Mackenzie and other religious leaders are doing a cult, first of all, call out Raila Odinga and the fact that everyone addresses him as Baba. But people don't realize you're gaslighting Kenya over something political that Kenyans made a choice of. Because I don't think Baba didn't come to anyone. I don't remember anyone telling me, Mary-Liz, if you like Raila, you must call him Baba. Nobody told me that. It's something that we pick on, not because, and I've always said, it's not because Raila is the best leader we could have ever had, no. But because at the center of everything that Raila believes in, Raila makes an attempt to believe in human rights.
True.
Which is a very, very important thing.
Yeah.
Things like people who are Christian fundamentalists like William Samoei Ruto, sorry, I don't use honorable or president, he can go fuck himself if he wants to. I don't use things like that because this man has literally been in power for less than how many months now? Less than 10 months, and the crisis we are facing is too much. It's sad that we are talking about Mackenzie and over 70 people being missing or dead. And the next images we see are of him and Mackenzie and the likes taking pictures together. What is not Christian fundamentalist about that? And what is not what is normalized within religion when you will get a woman to sell all her properties, to give you all the details of all her properties, to get her to fast until she loses one of her children, and for her to disappear and leave her marriage, her union, which from all evidence that we could see online, it's not like her marriage was bad, it's not like she was being abused, she just wanted to leave because she was pursuing something that you made them believe that it's a thing. We normally do that. Kenya is languishing in poverty. But it will shock you the amount of property that these people own. It will shock you the amount of lavish lives that these people live. In February, I was coming to Mombasa for a meeting. And when I was coming to Mombasa, I boarded a flight. And one of those pastors, not Mackenzie, the other one, the one for stolen Nyota or something. Ezekiel. I was in the same flight with the guy. They use first class, they use business class. He's traveling with, I think it was the wife. I don't know if it is the wife because I don't follow up on the guy. But also he has other 3 people that are also getting into the business class and traveling. Guess whose money they are using? It's your money and everyone who is their followers' money to be able to do all those things. To come to Mombasa, who knows to do what? Yeah. Who knows, maybe they were going to Kilifi and the bodies that are being discovered right now are bodies that they participated in killing in February. You wouldn't know all these things. And that's the problem with, organized religion. If we talk about Catholic, we will not finish that thing today because the stories we've interacted with on social media where priests defile altar boys who are supposed to be coming to the pulpit to support men of God do the work and all that kind of stuff, but they end up victims of defilement and abuse. When those conversations are brought back to the community, they're centered as though LGBTIQ people are the problem because these pastors and priests wouldn't have done this to small boys if they were not gay. But the truth is, we know they are not gay. We all know that, right? We all know that. And then you ostracize queer people get killed. The recent case we are dealing with is one of our very own Edwin Chiloba, whose body was found in the most ridiculous of ways you could ever find a human body. And I saw many Christians who say they believe in God, and I have screenshots of these things on my phone because they burnt my TikTok around that same time because I was really calling out these Christians. And in true nature of social media as a system, of course they're going to defend this God that is supposed to be a very good God and all that kind of stuff. And the conversation of Christians were like, stop selling the idea of LGBTIQ people, it's Western, or you'll find yourself in a metal box like Chiloba. And these things were said over and over and over again. I'm a person who has a thick skin because of the work that I do. But I know these things were said to many queer people out there. I know so many queer people who are struggling with mental health thanks to what has been happening in the country. Who is going to care for them? And then when these people die, the government will not take responsibility. CITAM as a church always gives pressers when it's something to do with LGBTIQ people. We get a ruling by the court to allow us right to association, they release a ruling. They release a presser. Chiloba dies, they release a presser. Anything that happens to the LGBTIQ community, they release a presser. I'm looking at this camera and asking people from CITAM, where is your presser when Mackenzie has killed over 70 people? Who is holding him accountable? Or is it what you're doing, is it what Njoya is doing, trying to make us believe that organized religion is okay, you people are not doing anything, we should question people, gaslight Kenyans and make people feel like their beliefs are not what they think they are. Why? Because you're a beneficiary of that organized religion. Because Njoya wouldn't be able to tweet if he wasn't a pastor who makes a lot of money off of people. True. Would he now?
No.
Poor people in Kenya are not able to tweet because they don't have resources to be able to do that. So he's doing that thanks to the years and years of exploiting Kenyans in the name of tithing, in the name of toa sadaka, in the name of
10%.
panda mbegu, in the name of all these things that you're supposed to do, apparently to be blessed to get these things. So where really is the problem? And when you talk about extremism, who really is an extremist? Is it the religious leaders? Is it the people? Because I can't fault a victim for believing what they thought was a solution, but I can fault a perpetrator for making a victim believe that this is a solution, even when they know what they're setting them up for is a trap for death.
Yeah, thank you.
And do you think whatever is happening right now on religious extremism, do you think if the survivors or the people who have died, if they had higher hierarchy in the society, or people who are regarded as they're at a higher level in terms of societal ranking. An example, let me give it like our leaders, our political leaders, that sphere of political leaders, or who else? Mostly political. If someone who
like if they belong to a higher social class.
Yes, a higher social class. If they succumb to what is happening in Kilifi, would the same response be would the response be the same from our governments, from our religious institutions in Kenya, from even the people who consider themselves religious? Where are the sheikhs and because I also understand this is humanity is our overall religion. So would you think it would have been the same?
I think it would have been different. It would have been different because the concept of it is religion is an opium for the poor, right? And so the conversation around it would be, if this was happening to people who are on the higher level, higher social class in the society, what would have happened is one person dies in that mysterious ways and it will make news all over. But because there's a level of poverty that is involved with everything, and going to heaven and all this whole concept that is painted for this person who doesn't have much, and still this religious leader, and for lack of a better term, the predatory nature in which they operate, they want to take everything from this person. That's why it's one life too many, because then what will a poor person do? They've not eaten last night. Their person disappeared. How much noise can they make before they trace their person back? They can only make so much noise, because when you're hungry, do you have energy to make noise? When you're poor, you don't have money for school fees, for the ones that are still alive, for the ones that are not missing. Do you have the strength to go on making noise about people who are missing? Because we know things like extrajudicial killing happen in Kenya, and people get their people killed and they don't speak about it until way later. When it's breaking out, it's always the conversation of when did this happen? It happened on this date. We know the cop who killed this person. We've tried to pursue it, but the reason we are bringing it online is because years and years of pursuit have not brought any justice and all that kind of stuff. When it's about poor people, which is why Christian fundamentalism is dangerous to people, when it's about poor people, your life doesn't matter. The minute, and I love that Maureen brought it up, the minute we die in hundreds and thousands, that's when people begin to care. And by the time they begin to care, we are the next Rwanda. We are experiencing a genocide. We are experiencing many people dying. And I want you to know also, death is it's not just the physical death. It's the figurative kind of death also people die. You sell your soul all together to this organized religion that you believe in, that by the time you die physically, you've died in all other aspects. Because definitely there's an aspect of shame to how they are able to leave their families and go interact with that.
Right. So just to wrap it up, I'd just like to double down on what Mirilise has said. This is class warfare. This is a war against poor people, a war against women, a war against LGBTQ minorities. But we must always remember that the enemy is capitalism.
Yes.
We must always remember that the enemy is the ruling class. We cannot afford to be divided on, lines along gender and sexuality.
Look out for the fourth Feminist Leadership Academy in 2024 and also follow us on our social media handles and pages. On Facebook, Young Women's Leadership Institute, Twitter at YWLI_info, Instagram is YWLI_Kenya, TikTok YWLI_Kenya, YouTube YWLI, Spotify is hashtag conversations, and you can also email us on info@ywli.or.ke. See you soon.